Hi, I'm Wanda with Jimmy Branch Homestead, and today I'm going to be canning chicken noodle and chicken rice soup. Now this is considered rebel canning because the national organizations do not feel that you should can rice or noodles, but the Amish have been doing it for over 100 years. So I am actually using one of their recipes, but I am going to try to pressure can it. They recommend water bathing for 3 hours. My concern about the pressure canning is if the noodles end up turning to mush. So this will be a trial run. We'll have to eat it anyway. So hopefully it is a success. So to start out, for the noodles, oh, I gotta grab it. I am using the medium wide kind of squirrely noodles. And the recipe calls for 1 cup for quarts. So half of my quarts are going to be done in the chicken rice, half of them will be done in the chicken noodle. So and we like ours very chunky, so try 4 with the noodles and 3 with the rice. For rice, they recommend, and I'll just set this aside because I'm going to use it again in a minute. So for rice, they are recommending 2 to 3 tablespoons per quart. Of course, you'll have to cut that down when we go to pints. 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and put in 3 because, like I said, we like ours thick, like a chunky soup. So then I'm going to have to cut this in half for the pints. So I will start off with the half cup of noodles. Oops. I really hope this works because that would be lots of wonderful new soups on the shelf. If it doesn't work, then next time I'll have to water bath. Okay, so I got half of the pints in noodles. Okay, so if I was using 3 tablespoons of rice in the quarts, so I'm only going to use 1.5 in the pints. Okay. So next up is the chopped celery. Oh, I need to grab those over here. I need more room. Okay, for the quarts, it calls for 1/3 cup. Again, I'm going to make these a little robust because we like ours really chunky. So I'm making it a heaping 1/3 cup. Oops, I had a couple left in it. Okay, next up is carrots, and the recipe calls for 1/4 grated, but again, we like ours chunky, So I'm going to put in about 1/3 of the chunks. That's in the quarts. And only about half of the cup, the 1/3 cup in my pints. Okay. Okay, so now this is the cooked chicken that I made yesterday. I did a bunch in the roaster and made broth. And it calls for 1/3 cup for the quarts. Again, I'm going to do probably a little heaping on here because we like chunky. Most time-consuming part was chopping everything. I may do a second canner full and try it with a water bath just to compare them. Okay, so for the pints, I'm going to have to do half of the cup, or a little over half. 1/3 cup is what I'm using, not half a cup. Now, normally I'd be hot packing a lot of this stuff and have hot water in the canner, but I had the broth and the chicken in the refrigerator overnight, and of course the cold vegetables. So I'm cold packing everything, and I'll start with tap water, cold water in the pressure canner. Okay, next up is the salt. For the quarts, 1 teaspoon. And for the pints, 1/2 teaspoon. Okay. And 1 teaspoon of dried onion flakes for the quarts. And these particular ones are purchased, but I'm hoping to get a bunch of onions and freeze dry a lot of my own. Would be a great thing to have in my emergency stash. Oh, and the pints only get 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, that does that. So super easy recipe. The only thing left is the broth. Now again, the broth is cold, so there is going to be, I skimmed the fat off this morning. there really was just a very thin layer, so there's not a lot of fat in here. But there is some. Okay, I better scoot this closer or I'm going to have a mess. And we need to leave an 1-inch headspace. So typically if you fill it to the top of the shoulder, that's 1 inch. And the shoulder is the top of the jar right below where the ring goes. I'm going to go ahead and fill all these jars, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I have all the jars filled, and I just need to go through and do a quick debubble of them. If some of them are running short, then I need to go back and refill. Okay, one last thing before we put the lids on, and I need to clean the rims to make sure there's no spices, meat, fat, anything that could keep them from sealing. Don't want any salt or any of those little onion flakes on here. Okay, I am using the Superb canning lids. I ordered from Azure Standard, and my quarts here are all Superb also. You can order the jars with or without rings, lids and rings. So lately I've been ordering them with, so that I don't deplete all my supply of lids. I don't really need more rings, but you know, they do rust eventually. Or they get bent and you have to throw them away. And again, I'm tightening these just finger tight. I do a spin and then I do a little bit more. American that I have, I mean, it's new to me. My husband just got it for me for my birthday. Because so often I can big batches like this and I have to wait for it to cool down and then reload it, and you know, I'm up half the night canning and that's not so fun. I really enjoy canning, but I don't really want to have to be up half the night. So it's definitely, oops, a game changer for me. Knock that one off. And these are cold. You can see the jars are even kind of sweating, so I definitely want to bring this up slow. So I'm going to put the quarts in first on the bottom. You want to put them in so they're not touching the sides or each other. Okay. And then I'm going to put in my separator tray. Do our, oops. And I learned this from a friend. I just keep my regular size lids in one of these 1.5 pints I know they're kind of hard to find, these jars, but it works really great for storing these. I can get 5 dozen in here. So I really enjoy storing them that way. Oops. Okay. Remember to always check your jars for any cracks, chips, breaks, and your rings to make sure that you don't have them bent or rusty. All of those things will, well, the jars could break, would break probably more if they have the cracks in them. Or blow up, and you don't want that to happen. Pressure canning is perfectly safe as long as your equipment is in condition like it's supposed to be. Okay. Rings. I'm going to finish loading these and I'll be back when the canner's loaded. Okay, so I have the canner all loaded. I'll just kind of show you here. So the quarts are on the bottom, then I put the tray in the middle, and then I have the pints on the top here. So again, I want to bring this heat up slowly because of the cold. Everything's cold. So I'm just going to turn this on medium-low to get it going, so it can heat up gradually. Okay. Here is the lid. Yes, it's heavy. There are an arrow here and an arrow into the pot. I just have to line those up. And then I want to make sure that the lid is kind of equal distance in the gap here all the way around. To the best of my ability, okay. And then just slightly turn them first, just to get them in place. And you always go opposites. The All-American canner does not have a seal like our typical canners. My other pressure canner, it seals metal to metal. And so you just treat it with Vaseline, just to kind of help it get a good seal, which I just put a thin layer of that around on the inside. And now we're just gonna wait for this to slowly heat up so it doesn't break the jars. Okay, so I also have a water bath canner. I did the same recipe in pints and packed them in here. Now remember, with water bath canning, you have to have the liquid at least an inch over the top of the jars. And since these are going to be boiling for 3 hours, they're closer to 2 inches over. I want to make sure that I don't have to add water. So I know that, again, this is not an approved method of canning, but this and the water bath canner with this recipe is how the Amish do it. They do not use the pressure canner. So again, my concern with the pressure canner is it going to make my noodles mush and the rice? So we'll see. I hope it turns out, because there was a lot of jars in that canner. But then I'm going to do this method following the instructions by the Amish and see how it turns out. So we will compare the two when they are done. So once this gets up to pressure, the pressure canner, it will go for 90 minutes, but it's under pressure. Once the water bath starts boiling, it will go for 3 hours. So, okay, so the pressure canner is steaming good now. So I need to set the timer for 10 minutes and let it vent. And the water bath is boiling hard now. So I turn it down a little bit, and I need to time that for 3 hours. So, okay, it'll be ready at 7. Okay, so I'm turning that down a little bit so it's not boiling quite so hard. It needs to boil, but it doesn't have to boil that hard. Okay, the timer's going off. So now I need to put on the weight, and I don't think you can see the numbers, but I'll try. It's 5, 10, and 15. I process at 10 pounds of pressure based on my, there we go. And now we don't start the timer until it starts rocking steady. It shouldn't take too long. Okay, so the All-American is up to 11 pounds of pressure. And the jiggler has started jiggling. So now it will take 90 minutes from now. This canner will be done. Okay, so the All-American canner shut off at 6 p.m. It's still very hot, but the pressure is all the way down. Whoops, but it was warm. Okay, so the All-American is still very hot, but it did shut off at 6 p.m. The pressure is all the way down, so I'm going to loosen up and take the lids off so that it can cool down. And the water bath just shut off at 7 p.m. That's 10 minutes ago. So I took the lid off the water bath and kind of let that stabilize a little bit before I take those out. So, moment of truth. This is the water bath canner. Oh, it looks good. Sounds good. The seals sound good. Oh, yeah, it's sealing. These lids are heavy, and boy, you hear them when they pop. And we loosen them the same way as we tightened them, just opposite each other.
Thanks for checking out our channel. This is going to be hopefully a help.
Oops. I'm so short. There we go. Okay. Okay, oops. So that is one out of the pressure canner. They do look kind of more cooked, but they're still not falling apart. This is the quart chicken rice, and they're popping, so that's great to hear. Okay, so it's the next day, and I got everything cleaned up and labeled, and now kind of wanted to show you some comparisons close up. This is the chicken rice via the pressure canner, and this is the chicken rice by water bath method recommended by the Amish. This is the, this is the chicken noodle. I'm not sure how well you can see it on video, but there is lots of little holes in the pasta. You can tell it's much more overcooked from the pressure canner. And this is the chicken noodle by the water bath method. So I took this recipe out of an Amish book of canning, and according to their directions, you would process this for 3 hours in the water bath. So this canner was a water bath, this canner was a pressure canner. When I do it again, I'm going to use the water bath. I know it's meat, I know it's noodles, but it's a proven recipe by the Amish. It's not approved by the federal government. It is considered rebel canning, but the Amish have been doing it for over 100 years successfully. So I am going to can using the water bath method in the future for this particular thing, for the pasta and rice soups. So if you're enjoying this type of video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps to grow our channel. Also, if you would share our videos on your social media. Thank you so much for watching Jimmy Branch Homestead.